Hey all, or 4 here. This is actually a first time for two of these attackers on War offense for me. I've used Hood and Apocalypse before, but I haven't used either of them since I ascended them, and that part should be fun. We're starting out with Hood here against Gladiator. Immediately go for the miss. Um, we get our first prowess there, which does allow us to pause the timer while hitting into him, which is pretty nice. We do get another one up there, but that's okay because the only thing I'm really focusing on here is getting that Fate Seal up on the first special 2. I don't really care if I throw it into Indestructible. I happen to get another parry off before I throw each of them, but it doesn't really matter. You'll see here I managed to throw into block or hit into block, but the only thing that I am concerned about is keeping the Fate Seal up so I don't take any damage back from spiked armor, so I don't have to worry about his specials doing more damage. I figure Hood is just a strong enough counter to a relatively vanilla defender in Gladiator that as long as I do that, I will find my windows, and that is what happens. We move on to Jabari here. Now, you could do this with Hood, honestly, given that even when she misses and gains charges, you can get around that by then gaining prowess. But Havok obviously has class advantage and benefits a little bit more from the prowess, and this is just a cleaner fight. Now, we do expect Jabari to gain a certain number of indestructible. I also expect her to gain a certain number of charges, right? Because while she's being this aggressive, I'm probably not going to be able to stay on top of my prowess. I may not even be able to get the prowess enough to keep her Huntress charges down all that much, and I definitely do not want to get hit with this special too while she has all of those up. But that's okay, I'm just taking my time, getting my prowess where I can. I parry this special attack here to get yet another prowess, stay on top of things. I hit into her block when she lets me, but you can see she's not really letting me. But we've built up enough that I can finish things off with this special 2 here, using the striker, of course, just for lining things up that much better. You really see in that fight how much pausing the timer by having a prowess up on a tactic attacker makes things simpler. So here we have the first Apocalypse fight. This is by no means an ideal Apocalypse fight. I don't necessarily recommend this in a vacuum. But the reason I'm here, the reason he is on the field in the first place, is because this is one of the only mutants on the field, and therefore this is the easiest place to ramp him to donate a Horseman pre-fight to the boss for our Professor X player, because we do have a Bullseye boss. Now, the reason I don't necessarily recommend this particular fight is because we have no prowess control, right? And Sauron is just going to be unblockable for literally every single special he throws. I'm pretty comfortable with the special 1 decks. I'm okay at the special 2 decks, but when it's unblockable, I'm just not going to push him to it. You'll see that pretty clearly here. But as a drawback, like often Apocalypse, does good damage and then relies on despair from all of his debuffs to keep willpower under control. Sauron's regen rate cannot be reduced by despair, and so you're just going to see all of these green numbers the whole time. Really gets pretty annoying. The bleeds actually don't help us at all. They are pure bonus to Sauron. His crit rate goes up, he heals from them, we do basically no damage. The only reason I ever throw a heavy is to refresh the debuffs here. Now, what I should have done right there, because I just talked about how refreshing the debuffs is helpful, is I should have done those light attacks into block and then immediately parried because the unblockable had expired, and then I could have kept all of my debuffs up. You see there, that's why I ran the indestructible boost. I knew I was going to get tagged eventually. And if I had thrown that heavy, then I would have kept all 3 debuffs up, and the next special 1 would have done an absolute ton of damage. But I didn't do that. I didn't quite have the wherewithal to make that adaptation, and I was focused on, in general, he's unblockable in this fight. Better safe than sorry. So the fight takes a little bit longer to close out. Not a problem. We move on to Mantis. If I wanted to make this that much safer, I would use a regen boost. But honestly, Apocalypse doesn't need to. He has his own prowess, and that is the most important thing against her, is just being able to knock her down with a special with prowess so that you don't get sleep on you. If you happen to have a regen and shut down her tranquilize, then that definitely makes life easier, right? But I don't consider it nearly as important. Plus, with Apocalypse, we're trying to push to his special 2, right? And by the time we get there, the regen will have worn off, and so it won't really be helping us anyway, right? So that's why I elected not to bother with it here. It probably just would have bought me a parry or two that I don't really need. We see that she is going to throw this heavy here. We bait it out, we hit it into her, and we do a full combo into the special 2 to try and make sure that we're pushing her over 2 bars. We can handle the special 1, but why bother, right? It's going to give her a cleanse charge, and that's going to make life that much easier. Throw the heavy here to refresh the concussion. Unfortunately, don't get lucky and apply the degen, but that's okay. Immediately block to beta heavy, so that again we can push her over 2 bars. We do get lucky enough to get the weakness there, and now we just basically need to hit her a couple times, hit in enough that there we go. Just our heavy damage closes it out. I've basically done that exact fight a dozen times in AQ on map 8, back when I was using Apocalypse for my lanes, so very familiar. Not a complicated Mantis fight. Now here we have Havok versus Onslaught. Havok versus Onslaught, generally, very, very good node, or very, very good fight. However, this is Power Snack, and I was kind of under the impression that he was going to block, like, ever. As you can see, right there, he goes back, he blocks. I'm like, cool, I can hit his block. I can build some prowess. I can push him back and create some space, and he just drops his block and I hit him. Not ideal. I'm intentionally blocking the last hit of these special ones here. I don't want to deal with the damage from a ton of neuroshocks all at once, but a couple at a time are going to ramp me, place those plasmas on him, and give us those detonations. I intentionally throw the special 2 here because I'm very ready for it, and I know that as long as I dex the first hit in reverse to avoid the degens, I will be fine, and I do manage to do that. However, I will say that my main tactical error thus far is that I should not have thrown that first special 1, because clearly I am having trouble building space here, right? That is the first time he lets me hit his block, really, since the fight started, and so I should be saving to the special 3. Right? I should be saving to the special 3 because it will let me build space. I haven't been parried mid-combo in so long. I think I was getting a little bit flustered by being backed up, but that's not an excuse. I don't know what happened there. I clearly just slowed my combo down a little bit. I'm not going to blame the AI. It's annoying that it's that fast, but this is Tier 1 War on the Elite map. It kind of should be. I need to be a little more locked in. And so that's unfortunate. If I had never thrown specials in the corner, if I had saved to my special 3, I think I would have been able to push him away from the wall enough that I wouldn't have even worried about that. And then we could have avoided that unfortunate death. But realistically, this is just a fight that never needs to happen. Havok is amazing for Onslaught pretty much everywhere else, but this node just slows down the tempo enough, has enough health, and you risk getting backed up and having exactly that happen to you if he doesn't play along. Just send a buff immune. Like, obviously you don't need to worry about a nullify immune, in my opinion. Most of those don't really do all that much to counter Onslaught. But use a buff immune like Titania, Spidey 2099. We even had one, I think maybe even one of each in the field. This was just me focusing too much on the RPG matchups between the two characters and not enough on the nodes themselves, and allowing that to change things. And that leads to deaths. So, not happy about it, but I know why it happened, and it's easy enough to avoid in the future. Moving on, we have another Havok fight, this time against Hazard Shift Nova, also a tactic defender. And you're going to see that I learned my lesson, right? Because this time, although Nova doesn't have Power Snack fueling him, he does gain power every time he dashes forward. He is relatively annoying, right? He can have a tricky AI. And so I learned my lesson from the Onslaught fight, and you'll see me hold on to my special until we get to the special 3. I also want to call out, you can technically do this fight with Hood. His Fate Seal shutting down ability accuracy probably gets you through it fine. But why bother, is basically where I'm at. Better to use Havok. I have no idea why I even tried to dex that. It burned through my prowess. I shouldn't have done it. You'll see me hit a little bit into the shock phase here. I'm not intending to stack a bunch of shocks because I don't have an Odin pre-fight, but I am intending to just get like one on me at a time to place those plasmas. Now, I will say, I said I learned my lesson. Clearly, I didn't learn my lesson immediately. It took me throwing that special 1, having it go unblockable, and then me going, right. I don't mind if it ramps him, but I definitely mind if he goes unblockable, because now I burn through all my prowess. So I'm not going to do that again. I block this one here. I do parry, but then he throws the heavy, and so at this point I'm like, alright, we're doing alright, but I really need to get out of the corner. I go ahead and parry there, get my prowess up, which is important for controlling the indestructibles, but really I was just biding my time until I got enough power for a special 3, and that closes it out. Also a good reminder of what the Onslaught fight could have looked like, because Havok's special 3 is pretty good. So, yep, mistakes were made. Not going to dwell on it, but it is nice that that Nova fight went so much better because we got out of the corner with that special 3. You'll also notice that I did block in some places. I also parried a couple, or that last charge on the special 1. That kind of stuff really comes in handy, as I keep saying. This tactic is tough. This tactic is, I think, harder than the last one. The last one was more stressful for me, personally, because there were so many moments where you just had to kill or you knew you died. A large part of that is probably that I was using Shocker so often for it. But I think that this tactic is that much harder, especially against the Cosmics, because things can just get away from you. Anyway, speaking of getting away from you, Mystic Dispersion did push me red there against Sersi. That's okay. We're playing carefully around the glancing because we know that return policy will trigger if we don't have our Fate Seal up. But what we're going for here is another special 2. I stay open, hoping that she'll throw this. She does, and now I'm just looking for a place for a heavy. There it is. Definitely could have thrown it a little bit earlier, but this is my last of the Hood fights, and so I don't really care about conserving bullets. Play a little bit safer. And that's my war. I donated the pre-fight to the boss, and that fight went very well, so definitely worth bringing Apocalypse and slow playing through those fights. So like I said, I do think this tactic is probably harder than the last one, at least up here on in Tier 1. I do feel like we are learning it, but man, more practice in the off-season really, really would have helped. I've said before, that's not really something that I think Kabam can change with incentives for alliances. If people have decided they don't want their opponents to get practice, they're just not going to place, right? Like if the tactic turns on whether there's somebody on the boss or not, nobody's going to place tactic defenders. No way around that, but hopefully we can find the dev time to put together practice for these tactics, because if they're going to stay this hard, we need it. This one is definitely proving that. I don't think it's that much harder than Crush, but I think it proves that you can't really get used to a level of difficulty like this if the exact nature of the difficulty changes even every 3 months. You're like, yep, this is definitely hard. No transferable skills from the last one. And I mean that both as a player and as an officer, right? Officers have to relearn a lot of things when it comes to these kinds of tactics. We're getting there, but yeah. If you're feeling like you're not playing super well this tactic, if you're feeling like things aren't going great, you're definitely not alone. Hang in there. Anyway, take care, everyone, and until next time, thanks so much for watching, and take care. Take care twice, even.